Now, welcome to the second part of the show. A packed hour coming up. Lots of different things. We'll be talking about drink driving. We'll be talking to Michael Healy Rae. We're going to be talking to Conor Faulkner in a second. Firstly, literally hundreds of texts in regarding the Panto competition. Glenn Galvin from Beechwood Grove in Portlaw, you are the winner today. Glenn Galvin, family of four, pass for the Thursday night from Beechwood Grove in Portlaw. Thank you everybody for texting in this morning. Conor Faulkner, good morning.
Damien, good morning to you.
Oh no, you are. Oh no, you're not. Are you a Panto man? Do you like the El Panto? You do?
Oh yes, I do occasionally. But thankfully I'm through that life. I'm through that life phase. I might get a little bitter, a little bigger than that.
We've a Waterford Panto Society here, and you just wouldn't believe the phenomenal demand for tickets. It's just amazing. It really is, all over the country for Pantos, particularly when they're well done. Conor Faulkner, AA, tell me this morning, please. The Minister is planning, Shane Ross. He's planning to fine people to bring in a law. I heard you this morning as well talking. He's spoken about this before, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. And look, there's nothing wrong with the idea. It's quite a good idea. Certainly there's nothing wrong with his logic. What he's basically saying is that speeding needs to be separated into different degrees of offence, so that if somebody is less than 10 kph above the speed limit, that's an offence and you get penalty points, but it's not as severe an offence as the individual who's 30 kph above the speed limit, and so that person should be punished more severely. And I get the logic of the Minister's position. However, I have a couple of things to say. Firstly, I don't think we need this new law. We actually have road safety law in our statute books that's very, very strong, as strong as anybody's in the world. We need to enforce it properly. We need to administer it properly. And really, that's where government's efforts should be concentrated. It's always relatively easy to think up a new law. It's eye-catching. It does the round in the media. It makes for great sound bites. But in terms of what we actually need, I'm not convinced we need new laws. The other thing is that a law of this type has the potential, as was pointed out to the Minister previously, and when you looked at a previous iteration of it, has the potential to add complexity. And when you say complexity, read lawyers. I mean, solicitors rub their hands together in glee, and we wind up with a law that is much more difficult to enforce than the current one. So you could literally have a situation where solicitors go to court arguing about whether the Garda equipment is accurate enough to be certain that my client was doing 90.1 kph, not 89.9 kph. And, I'm sorry, Garda equipment is never designed to be as hyper accurate as that.
Yeah.
No police force in the world is. So we're putting complexity into our Road Traffic Act that just isn't necessary. And we're doing it to solve a problem that we can solve already with the existing law.
Yeah,
I think that's my frustration with it.
We're going to be hearing voices in a few minutes, Conor, of people I interviewed yesterday at the road crash ceremony memorial ceremony down in Waterford, and talking obviously about issues relating to that. At the minute, Shane Ross is not the most popular politician in Ireland, I think it's safe to say. So possibly bringing in another law at the minute, coming up to an election within the next 6 months, I think the government may, even if they think there may be some validity in it, I think from a political perspective the will won't be there for it.
Well, I mean, that's the real politic, Damien, isn't it? I mean, this Dáil is in its sunset phase, and I think it's unlikely that there will be that many new initiatives. Now, having said that, the law change that Shane Ross wants is not particularly complicated to legislate for. It would, as we've said, I mean, I think it would turn out to be enormously complicated in practice if they ever did it. But if there was a will, there would be a way.
Yes.
I think the question is not so much can we do this. Of course we can if we choose to. Should we do this? Is it the right approach to tackle the problem? In fairness to Shane Ross, I mean, I'd say two things about him, and I mean this very genuinely. He's absolutely sincere on the subject of road safety. I wouldn't always say that about every minister, but this guy is genuine. He really does care about the road safety performance in Ireland. He's put a lot of work into it, and he's passionate about it, and that is to his credit. And everybody working in road safety has had that experience with him and is glad of it. So genuinely, I'll give him credit for that. As I say, the concern I'd have is that every minister wants to put their own stamp on it. If you're the minister for a couple of years, Damien, you want You want
to be known for something,
This is, the Tierney Amendment came in and brought that, because it sounds great, but in terms of what we actually need to do, there's messy, unglamorous shoveling of coal that needs to be done. We need to improve courts administration service so that the databases are tied up. We need to provide more Garda resources. We need to provide more Garda equipment. All of that stuff is routine, and it's not eye-catching. But what actually is more important?
Sorry, Conor. Yeah, I know you're Director of Consumer Affairs for AA Ireland, but what about, like, a publican has just texted me in to say there's a qualitative difference between somebody who has 1 or 2 pints and drives home rather than somebody who has a bottle of vodka, 12 pints and 4 lines of Coke. And again, we've heard this discussion, and Danny Healy Rae was talking about it earlier in the week. Like, do you think Shane Ross was right to reduce the limit regarding alcohol in blood levels?
Yeah, I am. I'm convinced he was correct. And it's not just a question of me being morally convinced. I mean, the data is there. And I don't wish to be disrespectful to TDs, particularly rural TDs. I know they have a constituency to whom they're speaking, but honestly, this is like, it's up there with climate change denial. We're not having the conversation about alcohol and driving because the proof is there. And I'm deeply sceptical of publicans who are essentially pushing their own business, their own commercial return. I heard them in years gone by. They were all medical experts when they opposed the smoking ban, and now they're all road safety experts when they want their clients to be allowed to drink and drive. I'm sorry, the science does not agree with you on that, and anybody who doubts it, rather than just claiming it's all a government conspiracy, Google it, look at the data yourself. It is long since past debate. Like climate change, like smoking and health, alcohol and driving is proved.
Conor, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you indeed.
Thank you, Conor Faulkland there, Director of Consumer Affairs for AA Ireland. James has phoned in to 051 846 123. If drink was banned in the morning, there would still be a drunk driver on the road. The reason for it: there's no taxi services in rural areas, no buses, no way of people getting home if they go out. That's why people are driving after a few pints. People from rural areas they won't go into the towns. There are people being attacked in towns at night. A friend of mine lost his eye being attacked. Where does the rural man go? There will be no pubs left in any rural area because the facilities are not there for people in rural areas. Pubs are finished in this country. Drugs are the king. I was in Dungarvan recently after a match and I saw people taking drugs. There's a much bigger problem. That's a much bigger problem to drink driving. And people blaming the Healy Raes for it. It is ridiculous. What do you think of that comment? Let us know, please. 083 333 975. You can stop texting now regarding the Panto tickets. We are going to be talking to some people who have lost loved ones because of drink driving. Now, this is getting people very animated. Damien says, Frank, what's all this carry on about country people having to get out to pubs to drink alcohol? Simple solution. Drive, have a soft drink or a coffee, or stay at home and watch the box. Does alcohol have to be involved in socialising in this country? Damien, recently we've had a huge increase in pedestrians getting killed, mostly on rural roads, possibly because there's no transport to rural areas. Damien, the ignorance of people regarding the flu vaccine is infuriating. Why do all these armchair experts think they know better than healthcare professionals? If vaccines were dangerous, our doctors wouldn't be administering them to their patients. These clowns need to speak to their own GPs, who they presumably trust if they don't believe what your highly qualified guest had to say. That is from Donal in Tramore. Other people texting in also about the drink driving. Damien, a bottle of lager and cider, 67 cent. Talking about the price of alcohol in pubs there. Now, yesterday in the Granville Hotel, there was an event to mark the memorial, I suppose, the annual World Remembrance Day for road crash victims. I spoke to a number of people. You'll hear Maria Janssen, who is the Dean of Christchurch Cathedral, and also Christine Donnelly. And a person has texted in to say Christine sometimes compares the terrible tragedy of her son's accident, where the person had a bottle of vodka, 12 pints and 4 lines of Coke. But there's a completely different situation if one person has maybe 2 pints driving home from his local pub, says this texter. What do you think about it? Now, there's a girl who's only 5 months old when her father died. He was killed by a drink driver. You may have seen on the News and Star, an excellent piece by Dermot Keys, an interview with her mother, Kate, and her grandmother Barbara. So Sasha Lee Salkeld was only 10. She's 10 now, and she doesn't want any other children to grow up without having a parent the way she had. She's from the old Tramore Road, and her dad died, and the man who killed him in a car was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. So here are my interviews with Sasha and her mum and other people at the event yesterday. How old are you?
I'm 10.
10. You had a piece recently in the paper. Dermot Keys did a piece with you about your memories of your dad.
Yeah.
And obviously what...
The Mirror.
And the Mirror.
Did another piece today.
How old were you when he died?
I was 5 months old.
And how has it been for her growing up?
Like, she has a happy life. She has people that love her, you know, families and friends and stuff, but like, she's growing up without a dad. I mean, I can only do so much and give her so much of me, you know. But yeah, it's as she got older, she asked more questions, obviously, and wanted to know why her daddy was in heaven, and, you know, I never lied to her. So yeah, her response, I suppose, was when she was about 5 turning 6. She said, I told her, I said, look, a man did a bad thing, not a bad man did a bad thing. A man did a bad thing, he made a bad choice, Daddy's heart got hurt and he died, and I said the man is in jail at the moment. So
drink driving, was it?
Drink driving, yeah. Anthony Long was his name. He's from Castlemartyr in Cork. He had like more than like 22 pints and cocaine in his system, and just, yeah, he was like, it's quoted there, literally like a bat out of hell came for us. Crashed into us, left us to die, didn't call an ambulance, didn't check on us. He had no injuries compared to what we had, you know, in the car. We had no help, our phones were no good, you know. Laura bravely, in the split second that she had, veered away from him. Had she not done that in that split second, like, Sasha would have been orphaned, there would have been 4 bodies. So.
And what, Sasha, what do you think about this idea now that somebody would drink and drive?
I think it's absolutely disgraceful, because some people think it's okay to drink and drive, and it's not at all, because it's going to risk and affect so many lives, not just the person who gets injured or dies, like their family and their friends and all that. And I would hate to see somebody else. I would hate to see somebody else grow up without having a really important family member and all that, and it's just really...
There's some politicians that say it's okay to have maybe a few drinks. What would you say to that?
Well, I would just like to say that they're being really dumb, because I'm a 10-year-old saying it's disgraceful, and that's not supposed to be legal. And then there are grown men saying, oh yeah, it's all right if you have a couple of points and then drive, because it's not. Even if you only have one drink, it's gonna hurt somebody. If you have 10 drinks, it's gonna hurt somebody. There's no difference. If they have the money to drink alcohol and all that, then I know, man. Then I bet they have the money to order a taxi.
Did you hear this week about a number of politicians talking about permits for somebody to get in a car to have maybe 2 or 3 pints to drive home?
This is lunacy. I mean, come on, like, for God's sake, in this day and age, like, how many people have to die for them to cop on? And like, there's a 10-year-old there speaking to you, telling you how hard it is, I mean, for her to live without her father. This is something, I mean, young people die of things every day, and people die of things every day. This is something that can be avoided. People die of illnesses. This is something that can be avoided. Leave your keys at home. Call a taxi if you're going to drink and drive. These permits, it's just like the Healy Raes. I have no time for either of them. It's like she said, it's disgraceful. It's a joke. I mean, I think they're laughable, the both of them.
Christine Donnelly. Christine, we're here at this event. How important is an event like this for yourself and for others?
This event, Damien, is extremely important every year, because sadly from previous year, say gone, we're going to have more families bereaved and at a dreadful loss due to road traffic deaths. And I think if with attendance here today, as we can see, and with the amount of families, it's so important, because you may never have met the families before and you may never have interacted with them before, but we know when we come together in a room like this that we all know the pain and suffering caused by road deaths, and the exchange of numbers and the love and the support is so vitally important, and it's not just in Waterford, it's around the world today where families are coming together.
Comments recently by Deise Healy Rae and the idea that you'd have a drink driving permit for a number of people, or to have maybe 1, 2 or 3 pints. What do you think of that?
Well, I'm used to hearing Deise Healy Rae come out with these preposterous comments with regards to road deaths, and particularly I've always openly said with regards to rural isolation, and I've openly said also that he uses this adamantly as an excuse so that he thinks he's fighting the right cause by promoting people to be able to drink and get in behind the wheel of a car and drive. His comment recently, I am absolutely shocked, because if you spent one day in the home and the company of a family who have lost somebody to a road death, he would not be able to find a pair of shoes to fit him. I mean, he's an absolute insult. I know the people who have voted him in believe in him, but 99% of the people don't, and he really needs to stand back, and somebody needs to speak to him seriously about the way he's hurting families.
What message would you have to his brother?
The message I have to his brother is exactly the same thing, because I have had been in a situation where I have made comments on both brothers in the past with regards to their attitudes to drink driving and to 1 or 2 pints being okay. You know, if people want to have a couple of pints, fine. Make sure you don't get behind the wheel and drive, and also have an allocated driver or a minibus to share coming home. But I think both Healy Raes, and this is just my opinion and I feel very strongly on it, they're an absolute disgrace to the cause. They're a disgrace to the families who have lost road victims. And you know something, for any family sitting in their kitchen, not just me, but around this Ireland today and during the week, to absolutely hear that somebody above the Dáil is wasting Dáil time about speaking about giving somebody a permit to get in behind the wheel and drive, well, it's absolutely ludicrous, doesn't cover it.
There is a therapeutic process that goes on here.
I think it's really important, to talk about the ones who've died, because they're hugely present in people's hearts. That's the first thing. I think it's a vicious time of year coming up to Christmas. Not that any day is less hard, but Christmas sometimes can add salt to the loneliness. I think it's great that people are together and that this day is marked nationally. And if it gets people to do, as Michael said, and drive slower, never drink and drive. You don't have to prove a point of how good a driver you are on the road. Just be careful and think of other people and slow down and never drink, and that's it. What
did you think of the comments in the Dáil last week by a certain Kerry TD calling for drink driving permits?
Rubbish. Absolute, irresponsible rubbish. That's all I'd have to say on that. It's rubbish, and most people have enough wit about them to know if you're behind a wheel, you do not drink. End of. That's it. This isn't rocket science. And the idea that communities need people drunk behind wheels to survive as communities is rubbish.
Michael, full name and title, please, sir.
Michael Dolan. I'm retired from the Road Safety Authority. I was previously head of driver education. Been retired for a few years now, but I like to come along and support this event each year because, you know, there's so many people out there now that are struggling to come to terms with their grief. And from my perspective, you know, whilst we're trying to comfort them, and today will be useful and it helps to have the support there, the key message I would like to say to people is about its personal responsibility. We must change the way we behave on the road. We have fantastic laws in this country. They're as good as anywhere in the world. And they are having a positive effect. You know, over the last 10 years, we've seen death on the road, fortunately, decline. And today, as we stand today here in Ireland, we're 126 people lost That's one down on this time last year, but it's not good enough. It's still 126 crashed lives, crashed families, and we need to address that. And it's all about how we behave ourselves.
What do you think about the driver permit issue?
I can't begin to imagine what motivation somebody would have to say such a thing, to be frank. I wouldn't support it. I cannot see our politicians, any one of them support it. Well, no other politician supporting it. And certainly the people of Ireland will not tolerate that.
Will not tolerate that. Christina has phoned in to say the person who texted about the amount of drink taken, regardless of the amount, you're not supposed to drink and drive. It's an absolute insult to any family member who's lost someone because of a drunk driver. Does that caller know any family member who's been bereaved by a drunk driver? They should spend the day with such a family to be able to understand what they have to go through. Damien, you should play that clip of the brave little girl to Michael Healy Rae. Damien, I live in the city. Sometimes I get a taxi, go for a meal, a few drinks. Other times I drive and just drink minerals. Drinking is a choice, not a necessity. You do not need alcohol to socialise. Other people texting in about the lack of taxi services in rural parts of the country, that if you had to go to a pub and get a taxi home, one, you wouldn't get one, and secondly, it would just be too expensive. Damien, I missed the start of the last conversation related to drink driving. I think zero tolerance is the best way. This way about being allowed drink and drive in rural areas. The thing about being allowed to drink and drive in rural areas is crazy. If pubs want to stay open, they should offer a service where the publican can bring people home. Again, one of the issues is because of cutbacks and because people aren't going to the pubs, you may have a situation where it's only the publican that's in the pub. So he can't just legally leave his customers if somebody wants to go home. So you have a problem there with that. Damien, what's going on now on the roads is shocking. The amount of people driving with one hand and their phone in the other. I'm passing people constantly. I see people texting. I even saw a bus driver texting. Another person, Paddy, saying the amount of people driving and on their phones in Waterford is unbelievable. Everywhere I look, I see it. I can't understand these people. That is from Paddy. Coming up, we are going to be talking to an amazing woman who is one of the best carers in Ireland. Now, keep your texts and comments coming in 083 333 975. Damien, I think it's selfish of people who think it's okay to drink even 1 pint and drive. Another person texting in, the idea of the Healy Raes is actually a good one. You should be allowed to have 1 pint and drive home. Damien, people can sing, dance, play cards, chess, quiz, have a non-alcoholic drink or even a hot chocolate. Alcohol is not a necessity, says that texter. Other people texting in about the flu vaccine. Pauline McPartland, good morning.
Good morning.
Did you get the flu vaccine? Are you one of these people that gets the flu vaccine, Pauline?
Yes, I will be getting it.
Very good. You're 91 years of age, you're from Onrine, living in Onrine, and you're caring for your son Joe, who's 62. Tell me a little bit about Joe, please.
Well, Joe has progressive MS, and he has only command of one hand, but he gets 3 visits a day from 2 carers through the health board. And apart from that, I look after him. I make his meal in the evening. And I'm here all night and all day. But he's really paralysed and he uses a wheelchair as well and has to have the carers going out if he goes out for a walk during the day.
Pauline, you're 91 years of age.
Yes.
How do you do it?
It's not a problem. Fortunately, I don't feel 91 years of age, and it's a pleasure to do what I can do for Joe.
It really is amazing. You've just been honoured Netwatch Waterford Care of the Year, the award. And tell me a little bit about yourself, if you wouldn't mind, Pauline. You were a nurse and you met your husband in America, was it?
That's right, yes. I was a nurse and I was in Kappa Hospital first. I was trying to decide whether I wanted to be a nurse or not. And I was there for 2 years and had a very good orthopaedic training there. And after that, I went on to Dr. Stephen's Hospital, which is a general hospital, the oldest hospital in Europe. And I did 3 years training there as a general nurse. And after that, I went directly on to the Rotunda Hospital, where I spent 2 years training. And shortly after that, I came back as a sister to Dr. Stephen's Hospital, where I trained. And I was there for, again, nearly 2 years. And when I was there, one of the gynecologists, Dr. Edward Solomons, asked me if I would like to go to America because he was going over there to take over a gynecological department in Maimonides Hospital, which is the hospital for Jewish kosher in the States. So I went with him there anyhow, and with me went another nurse, Mary Enright, later Mrs. Fogarty, and also a secretary, Ethna McCall from Wexford. And we were there about 2 years. And I met my husband there from Belfast and got married there. And then I came home, and I was living up in Belfast, but I didn't go to work for years when I had 2 children. And after they had entered into secondary or grammar school, I went back to work with the public health in Belfast.
Yes.
And I was based in West Belfast, and it was during the years of the Troubles and a very busy place.
I'd say it was, yeah.
Yes.
And then you returned to Onrine after your husband's death, and a lot of people would know you. Your daughter Anya, she was principal of the Manskull, so you'd be well known. Did you find it strange, Pauline, or how would you, I suppose, describe? I know you say it's an honour to be able to look after your son Joe. He's 62, as we said, he's progressive MS. Did you find it strange that you were left in that situation, or did you embrace it? How would you describe?
I embraced it, and I actually enjoy being with Joe. I'm very grateful to think I have help and that I can have him here at home with me. And he's quite normal to converse with. Fortunately, he has no problem mentally. So I don't consider any great effort in what I'm doing.
It's just fabulous. What would you put your longevity and your good humour and your strength down to, Pauline?
Well, in my family, especially in my father's side, many of them lived into the 90s. But I have nothing special, really, that I can contribute to.
No little idiosyncrasy or a particular thing that you'll say, yeah, that's what's kept me going, no?
Well, I like flower arranging and gardening, and
keeps
cooking.
the mind. And cooking.
These are big things.
Lovely. And Pauline, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know from people talking to you and talking to Julie and others that you're a very humble woman, and getting the award, though, is due recognition for what you've done. And congratulations, and continued love and care with yourself and Joe.
Thank you very much. I'm most grateful to everybody who has helped with Joe and who is helping still. Thank you very much indeed.
Pauline, God bless. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Slán go fóill. Pauline McFartland there, 91 years of age, us on Rhine. We're going to go from a 91-year-old to some 9-year-olds who I spoke to the other night. The Synergy Dance Girls, they're taking part in the Late Late Toy Show. Here's a little clip with some of the little girls.
Sophie Devereux.
Sophie, how long are you dancing?
Around 3 years.
What do you like about it?
Everything.
What's your own name?
Core Power. I love breakdancing moves.
Do you practice much?
Yeah, a lot.
At home?
Yeah.
Where do you practice?
In my kitchen.
What's your name?
Heidi Sheridan.
Hello, Heidi.
Hi.
What do you like about all this?
It kind of makes me happy a lot, and I kind of get more calm. And girl, you're a bit crazy, I know.
And who's that girl there?
Lauren, she's my doubles partner.
All right, is she a bit crazy herself, is she? What makes you a bit mad?
Lauren.
Lauren what?
Purcell.
What do you like about the music? Do you like there's a great energy there? Does it really get all the energy out?
Yeah.
And what are the girls all like?
They're not as crazy as me, I can tell you. Lauren!
What's your name?
Millie McLaren.
How old are you?
6.
6. And you did a special dance there, didn't you? What do you like about it?
Everything.
And what about yourself here?
Maria Karina Stan.
What's great about all the girls you're all dancing together? Do you get to know it?
That they're great friends to me.
You make great friends as you're dancing, don't you?
Yeah.
And what about the teachers here and all the parents and everybody helping out?
They're kind and they help me when I don't get any moves.
And do you have to practice much?
Yeah.
How much would you practice?
like all day.
Wow, that's brilliant. Now, some lovely comments there. Best of luck to those girls as they take part in the Late Late Toy Show. Also, later in the week, we're going to be speaking to 7-year-old Robert Downey. He will be on a disability bike at the Late Late Toy Show this year. Damien, 8 minutes ago since I texted you, I've since passed 5 people on their phones in a car. Surely this should be more important for the guards, and stopping for tax and insurance wouldn't be too long getting revenue on this issue. Another texter: people can't stop at one drink, that's the problem. So it has to be no drink if driving. Everyone knows it has to be 0. Another person texted in, Damien, Christine from Cheek Point, she must realise it's not illegal to drink and drive in this country. The question is, is a driver at risk with 2 pints in them? Any argument over 2 pints does not stand up for nobody suggesting that they drive above 2 pints. So again, still people texting in saying about that issue. Damien, what about school buses being used to bring people to and from pubs? It would mean a few bob for the driver and peace of mind for everyone going out for a drink. That is from Frankie. What do you think about that, using the school bus to get people home? Again, some of the issues that people will talk about in rural parts of the country and the county is that it's very difficult to organise a time for them to get home. In terms of somebody might want to stay a little bit longer, it just may not be possible. It has, and there has been a lot of pubs closing down around the country. Coming up, I'm going to be talking to a certain Michael Healy Rae. Now, a lot of people still texting in about the issues we have been bringing up this morning. I'm going to be talking to Michael Healy Rae in a second. Firstly, Damien, a few weeks ago I was visiting a family friend. We went to his local pub in a small village, had a few drinks, and my friend left his keys with the barman, as everyone else was having a drink. And everybody else did the same. At closing time, the barman started to drive the locals home in a 7-seater. The next morning, he gave the keys back to the patrons. Perhaps more publicans in the country and small village pub could do the same, and the problem could be solved. Other people texting in about many different matters. I think we've got Michael Healy Rae on the line. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning to Damien. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thanks. Thanks for joining us. What part of the country are you in this morning?
I'm in County Kerry, the best place in the western world to be.
Well, now, people in Waterford would argue against that, you know.
They would. Well, Waterford is a good place too. I went to school with people from Port Larraga and I liked them very much. In an agricultural college, so we got on well.
Lovely. You have a new book out. It's called A Listening Ear. It's your second book. Do you find it interesting putting pen to paper and obviously working with publishers and trying to capture your life? Why do you do it?
Well, first of all, it was never on my agenda to do such a thing, only that Gill Publishers came to me a couple of years ago and said, would I do such a thing? And I said no. And they introduced me to a very nice girl by the name of Tara King, who's a ghostwriter, and she said that she'd work with me. And to be honest with you, they convinced me to do it. The one thing that I liked was people that met me afterwards, they said they enjoyed reading the book and they enjoyed the stories. And then they approached me a second time and said, would I do it again? And I said, look, if the first one, people enjoyed it, and if they had a laugh, I had plenty more things in my head to say, and I worked at the book sort of unusually. Myself and Tara, the only time we allowed to do this book was between 12 at night and 7 in the morning. And that's when the book was written. And hopefully people will enjoy it. What it is it's just ordinary stories and things that happened. And some of them are funny, some of them are sad, some of them are... I hope they're all interesting and that they'll put a smile on people's faces. And look, isn't that what it's all about?
It is. And they're all true. None of them are made up, are they?
Well, you see, this is what I'm very adamant about, is that when it's very easy to tell jokes, right? But I like, a joke is a joke, but real life experiences are what are very interesting. And some of these are about myself, some of these are about friends of mine, people that I knew. But like you said yourself, the one thing about them is everything happened. And whether it's things that are in this book or the last one, they're all real events with real people, and they really did happen. And like, some of them can be a little bit unusual. Like, I mean, I tell a story in this book, for example, of why and the circumstances surrounding the fact that one time I actually stole a tractor. Now, that might seem like an unusual confession to make, but I actually did. And it was when times were a little bit different. And I was maybe 17 or 18 at the time, and I was asked by a person to carry out a job of work which was they had built a brand new house and they wanted the house painted. So I painted the house, lock, stock and barrel, and as you can imagine, when you're painting a place for the first time, it soaks in a lot of paint, and they had unusually asked me to provide all of the paint, right? And I had done so. I had bought all the paint in a hardware shop, and so the bill for the paint and all that was in my name, right? And when it came to collecting the money, unfortunately, the man forgot to pay me. So I'd been done for maybe a year or so, and remember now there was no mobile phones, and I used to have to call, and my mode of transport at the time was a bicycle, and or maybe a Honda 50, and there was no sign of the money coming anywhere. And the one thing I knew was he had a tractor parked at the side of his house, which he used to use, and one day anyway, didn't I left my place. I got my mother to drive me, actually, and what I did was I went and I collected the tractor, right, and brought it away to my place. And when I landed home, I rang the guards. And I told the guards I was after taking this tractor, which was not mine. And the guard said, "Why are you ringing me and why did you take the tractor?" So I explained to him why. And the reaction of the guard was, "Well, I hope that when he's complaining that he comes to me and complains you," right? Because in other words, the guard didn't have much time for the fact that the man had neglected to pay his bill. So sure enough, after a few days anyway, I made contact with the man and I said, well, it was a bit like the unbelievable bills. Do you see that tractor of yours that's out the side of the house? Well, it's not there anymore. And he said, and what do you know about it? I said, because I have it. And he said, and how dare you take my tractor? Well, I said, look, it's like this. If you ever want your tractor back, pay me what you owe me. And if you don't, fine, I'll keep the tractor. And from that day to this, I never heard one word from that man again. So, again, these are the sort of things that happen in life.
Yes.
But like I say, sometimes there are unusual type of stories like that. But I hope people will find them.
Yeah. Now, I put up a note last night on my Facebook and Twitter account saying I was doing a chat with you today, and you polarise opinion. A lot of people obviously texting, saying about the drink driving issues, saying about you should be coming to Waterford because a county could do with somebody like you. Others saying that you're a populist. Others talking about your Dáil record and lots of different things. One person did say to me, is everything you do based on trying to get re-elected? Because that's the secret of a successful politician. And you have a massive, massive vote, and getting re-elected yourself and your brother, like even producing this book, is it all part of the process to get re-elected?
I suppose, that's an unusual question, but I'll give you a straight answer. The purpose of what I do every day is a thing called living. In other words, I live my life in the best way I can. I'm always and have always been interested in politics. And be it, first of all, just assisting my late father in doing his council work, then his Dáil work, then running for the council myself, then running for the Dáil myself. And remember, I could do nothing or be nothing only for the will of the people that want me to be there in the first instance. Then when I am fortunate enough to be elected, I see my job as to go as hard as I can for as long as I can and do and represent people in the best way that I possibly can, right? And like it's, I don't see it as being populist. Do you know what I mean? I just see it as being just trying to do my thing in the best way I can, right? And like other people might call that being populist, I just call it doing my work.
Yeah, and I know you're in
and I don't spare myself when it comes to doing my work.
Yeah, and Matty McGrath would be on the programme here, and I know Matty over the years, and obviously you're an independent. One of the issues, we don't have time to get into everything obviously at the minute, Michael, because just time is against us, but in terms of the idea of a permit for, we'd say, what Danny was talking about in the Dáil last week, your brother, would you agree with that, this idea of a permit for somebody to have maybe 2 pints to drive home on a particular minor road?
Well, let me put it to this way. I have been involved in this debate for many, many years now because, unfortunately, I saw the rural decline and the way that was affecting our towns and our villages, and they have been decimated. But at the end of the day, we are where we are now, and we know that this is not going to change. The limits and the rules and the laws and the regulations that are there, they are there. They are not going to be changed. They are not going to be watered down, and there is going to be no rowing back on this. Unfortunately, the result of it has been very detrimental to rural Ireland. Our publicans, who I really value their place in society, and the whole notion of pubs and the way the social interaction was for many, many years, that has been attacked and decimated. But as for trying to change it now, it's not going to be changed. And that's my opinion.
I understand. So it might have been a kite flying. Like we discussed it yesterday at the World Remembrance Day. I was interviewing some people, and there's a little girl, 10 years of age, Sasha, and her father, Lee Sackheld, he died a number of years ago by a drink driver, Michael, and she just had a little message because she was very upset when she heard about this idea of the permit, and this is what she had to say.
I think it's absolutely disgraceful because some people think it's okay to drink and drive, and it's not at all, because it's going to risk and affect so many lives, not just the person who gets injured or dies, like their family and their friends and all that. And I would hate to see somebody else. I would hate to see somebody else grow up without having a really important family member and all that.
So, like, I asked her a direct question as well, Michael, to yourself and Danny, like, what would she have to say to you? Like, there's a young girl who's obviously lost her father through a drink driving experience. Like, what would you have to say to families who've lost their loved ones through drink driving deaths?
Well, first of all, as I've already said, and as you have rightly stated, it wasn't my proposal, right? That's the first thing to be very clear on. The second thing, I have always stated, whether it's on the record of the Dáil, or at every vote, or at every place of debate where we've debated this whole issue, I have always stated that I am absolutely opposed to anybody breaking the law or drinking while driving at a time when they would be classified as being intoxicated. And anybody listening to that young girl, of course, they would have to have nothing but the utmost of sympathy for her and her mom in losing her dad. Yes. And all of the other thousands of people back over the years.
And you have said that, yes, you have,
yes, and I never allowed myself to speak in the Dáil, never, without starting off by saying we have to always think of people, because one of the most horrific things that can happen to any house is to have a knock on the door or a phone call or to be notified that a family member has lost their lives on our roads through any reason, be it to do with drink or to do with speed,
so would you be,
or to do with any other.
Would you be against your brother's proposal, what he said last week?
I didn't say that either. No, to be honest with you, Damien, I'll put it to this. My record on this.
Come on. I asked you a direct question. You're a man, and I've read your book. You're a man for direct answers. Are you against what your brother said last week?
What I am saying to you is the horse has bolted on this issue. We are where we are. I don't agree with the legislation that was brought in by Minister Ross and supported by Fianna Fáil.
And you have said that consistently.
And Sinn Féin and all these other people who did not listen to a reasonable debate on the way things were before. And it is not that the way things were before was that we were allowing people to drive a car while drunk. Nobody was ever suggesting.
If I had hair, Michael Healy Rae, I'd be pulling it out now.
No, there's no point in you pulling. There's no point.
Just like yourself, I'd need a cap to put. I know, but listen, answer the question. Are you against what your brother said last week?
And I have answered the question for you. If you chose to listen a small bit to what the answer I'm giving you, and I've answered it in the clearest way possible. The horse has bolted on this issue. The legislation is there now. I, you, and everybody else, whether we like it or not, we have to comply with the law of the land.
So you're against what your brother was saying last week?
I never said that. You said it.
You're talking out of both ends now, Deputy Healy Rae. Come on.
Not, and don't make that accusation. I'm not. I'm being very clear. I wasn't for this legislation. I voted against it. But I'm a realist, and I know that we are where we are now, and it's not going to be changed. And you know that. And there are other aspects.
So was he wrong to raise it then?
There are other aspects of road safety.
There are. There's many.
Because unfortunately, there are still too many people dying unnecessarily on our roads, whether it's to do with speed, whether it's to do with using the mobile phones, because our cars are safer, our roads are better, but we still have people dying on the roads, and we all have to be united in being opposed to that and working to try and achieve more people to be able to travel on our roads in a safe way and that they won't lose their lives.
Michael Healy Rae, TD, a listening ear, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Damien, very much.
God bless. Michael Healy Rae there.